Listen, I'm sorry, you guys. This right here is your in advance formal apology. I genuinely recognize that this one's gonna be a bit different, but it is what it is. Honestly, I tried. I really tried. I approached this one with an open mind. I poured myself a cup of coffee, threw on my nostalgia goggles, fired up Paramount Plus, and I thought, hey, maybe this one isn't as bad as I remember. Unfortunately though, as soon as those McNulty boys opened their mouths, my soul just up and left my body. Honestly, I'm questioning if I woke up and chose violence this morning, or if this episode just pushed me to my breaking point. Either way, we're going scorched earth and no one's getting spared here. This episode sucks, dude. It's aggressively bad. Like, I'll fully recognize that when I approach Rugrats, especially keeping its legacy in mind, I tend to give it major allowances. Nostalgia will do that. It's a powerful force. The problem is though, no matter how rose-tinted your nostalgia goggles are, this one is just unsavable. It's an episode so offensively cringeworthy that I'm contemplating taking out my eyeballs, dipping one in Dawn dish soap, the other in vinegar, putting them in my mouth and swirling them around a little bit before putting them back in their sockets and brushing my ear canals with toothpaste and a hard bristle toothbrush. No joke, if there was ever an episode that made me question my love for this entire franchise, it would be this one. It's like a physical assault on the senses, and to be completely real with you guys, we're not going to be highlighting the whimsical nature of this one or what makes it a valid episode. Nah, dude. Today on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're tearing this shit apart. No holds barred. We're taking this one out back and demanding some fucking answers. There's so much that I just hate about this one on a personal level, between the McNulty boys, the musical numbers, the weird, creepy romance with a doll. It's, if you know, you know. This is definitely the one episode in the entire series that I truly wish I could unsee. It's lazy. It feels uninspired, and it just feels like this one is truly the episode that, if it wasn't clear already, indicated the beginning of the series truly going downhill. Oh yeah, hey, really quick, if you have fun going scorched earth with me, let me know by liking the video, leaving a comment, and sticking around for another video after this one. YouTube pays attention to that kind of stuff closely, and it helps me know whether or not I should consider making more of these kind of videos, or maybe contemplate taking up meditating. Whatever, let's get back into it. Now, in the name of laying context and not being a complete downer, we have to touch super briefly on the show's legacy. Straight up, this one is hailed, rightfully so, as one of the greatest cartoons of the 90s. That really does say a lot too, considering just how sick cartoons were back then, as well as how broad they were. I mean, just in the world of Nicktoons alone, we would see that decade birthing shows like Rocko's Modern Life, Hey Arnold, and technically towards the end of the 90s, SpongeBob SquarePants. Absolute legendary shows. Not to mention that a whole 2 channels over, there were massive shows like Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, and the Powerpuff Girls paving an iconic path over on Cartoon Network. In the world of superheroes, we would see incredible cartoons like Spider-Man the Animated Series, X-Men, and Batman the Animated Series. We were even graced with 2 separate and drastically different Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons airing on TV at the same time. I mean, come on, dude, Beavis and Butthead, Pinky and the Brain. Like, the 90s were undeniably a massive era for cartoons. Dare I say, they were all that. Sure, The Simpsons may be the king of 90s cartoons, considering it dominated the animation world that entire decade. However, Rugrats was always not that far behind. It had all of us completely mind blown with the original storytelling and how bizarre the animation would get at times. Not only was the storytelling absolutely phenomenal, but because it was rooted in toddler reality, it could explore naturally in ways that other cartoons would kind of have to force. From the extreme close-ups imaginatively mimicking the way the babies perceive the world, to every single unconventional means to reach an outcome, the show really did set itself on a path to be able to play around freely from the start. Sadly though, with it having reached an impressive 172 episodes across 9 seasons, it's inevitable that at some point the writers would reach the natural blockade where they'd start running out of stories to tell and, as a result, start churning out episodes just for the sake of churning out episodes. Of course, with absolutely no regard to whether or not they were complete shit. That honestly wouldn't come as much of a surprise, and particularly for the case of Rugrats, the fatigue really seemed to set in after the movie. It seemed like after the Rugrats movie came out, there was a particular uptick in lazy writing and gimmick episodes that just kind of increased after the second movie, Rugrats in Paris. Like, in hindsight, it kind of comes across pretty blatantly of them running out of ideas to tell a story, and as a result, they just kind of opted for copying other stories told. Which is where this episode comes into play. Yet another lazily thrown together episode where they just copy a story that's already been told a couple times over now. However, this time, whether it was the story being told or the way they approached it, it just didn't work. It's like putting on a Shakespeare play inside of a Chuck E. Cheese. Wrong audience, wrong setting, and the dude in the rat suit's bound to get punched. This one truly just feels like another gimmick episode thrown together to fill a time slot to me. But the true crime here is how much of this just feels like a randomly generated mishmash of an idea. It feels like something that came out of a random idea generator from the early days of the internet. This is a story that, to be honest, had no valid reason to be translated to an episode of Rugrats. I don't think anybody really asked for this or wanted this, yet they graciously delivered this steaming pile on a platter anyways. With that being said, hey, maybe I'm the one in the wrong. Maybe I just don't get it. Let me know down in the comments if you have a valid argument for this episode existing. I'm totally stumped at this point though. By the end of this video, maybe you'll agree with me too. Of course, we are talking about none other than the Season 7 episode, Wash Dry Story. Alright, so first of all, we're not even an entire 10 seconds in, and they've already lost the plot catastrophically. This intro's just so boring in comparison to what they used to be. Like, you could randomly pick nearly any episode from the first few seasons, and the beginning shot would be astronomically more creative and well thought out than this. You know what, why don't we just really quick test that out here. I'll pull up Rugrats Season 1 and we'll pick any episode at random. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, this one has a funny thumbnail. Let's see, Graham Canyon. Alright, get past the intro and... yeah, see, it's a close-up of Tommy playing with a car that has his name on the license plate. This could very well be the most boring of all the Season 1 intros, and even this alone is way more creatively approached than Stu just kind of sitting confused by a dripping spigot. What else? Let's see, the next episode is Stu Maker's Elves. Yeah, exactly. Even something as simple as Tommy playing with a little toy glider plane is drawn so much more creatively and artistically than this. Again, to me, this just showcases the laziness. I mean, I guess they hyperbolized the water dripping, but that's the extent of their stepping out of the norm here, and to be honest, you can really feel it. It's very plain. So inside the house, Tommy and Chucky are doing their own thing in the playpen while Kimmy has her favorite toy, Super Thing, and Angelica's doll Cynthia as she pretends that the two are getting married. When Angelica sees that Kimmy has Cynthia though, she absolutely loses it, screaming at the top of her lungs and ripping her doll out of Kimmy's hands while berating her.
Children can be so cruel. Why is Kimmy so aggressive?
Now this, oh man, this makes my blood boil. Charlotte has some serious next level audacity to say something like that about Kimmy while she's raising the brat that takes after her, meanwhile bullying her husband who pretty much lives in the chair. How can children be so cruel, she says. while talking about the literal baby who is just playing and minding her own business only to be essentially verbally assaulted by an older kid. I get that they're leaning into the comedic aspect of it, but when we consider how much of a lackluster yet cocky asshole that Angelica grew up to be, and that it's primarily Charlotte's fault, it makes these moments sting a little bit extra. Like, it's almost impressive how much Charlotte Pickles is pretty much the epitome of hypocrisy. Not the epitome, the epitome. Just because I know that pisses you guys off, and I want to embrace that rage. Let the hate flow through you. In all reality, though, there's a ton of moments where we see Charlotte's hypocritical nature shine through in really subtle and underlying subcontext. However, it's the really in-your-face, abrasive, and obscene instances like this one that really show just how much Charlotte sucks eggs and is a total hypocrite. Straight up the walking personification of do as I say, not as I do. Unless you're my daughter, then help yourself and trample the entire world around you. So, next thing you know, the entire house starts shaking and we see a massive geyser erupting in Stu and Dee Dee's front yard, conveniently on laundry day.
You do laundry?
You don't?
Pickles? Are you joking, Jonathan? I'll be right over. Apparently, your husband has terminated the water for the entire neighborhood.
As Dee Dee prepares to take the kids to the laundromat, we cut over to Charlotte and Drew's house where Jonathan, Charlotte's assistant, is prepping a bag of laundry to also take to the laundromat. At one point though, he sets the bag down in a frustrated huff, and when he does, the bag bumps the table and Cynthia ends up falling in, unbeknown to Angelica. We fast forward to everyone arriving at the laundromat, including Jonathan, and the babies are just completely enthralled by the visuals of the laundry spinning inside of the washing machines. They end up exploring a little bit further, and they stumble upon a back room where they find none other than the McNulty boys, who are there with their mother as she takes care of their laundry. Their mother, Colleen McNulty, ends up talking to Dee Dee and Betty a bit, and we learn that the McNulty family comes here once a week to do all of their laundry, and the kids usually end up playing in the back room, so this is kind of a regular thing for them, as opposed to the babies, who see this all as a cool, one-time novelty. Tommy ends up asking Timmy and his brothers if they'd like to play, but they just end up laughing in his face as the cringe train takes off from Central Station.
Think so.
Oh, brother, are we really doing this? Seriously, we're doing this. Okay, this is burying me in a shallow grave already. First of all, my inner drummer is dying. Timmy snapping to the beat of this completely off tempo is like nails on a chalkboard. It'd be one thing to snap on the offbeat even, but no, it's just like random snaps that don't really line up with the song, and it's painful. I mean, I love me some wacky mathcore, weird time signatures and riffs without a traditional resolve, but as someone who loves the screeching sound of a 90s internet modem and a distortion pedal being thrown down the stairs, even I want to Van Gogh myself hearing this. Also, for full transparency, I haven't seen West Side Story, which is what this episode is apparently based off of. I'm not familiar with the reference or the song that they're parodying for even a second. It's just not my cup of tea. Maybe the theater buffs out there love this episode, or maybe they find it an awfully put together parody. I'm not too certain. For me personally though, this scene, and specifically the McNulty boys, are giving tunnel snakes from Fallout 3. And I fucking hate the tunnel snakes, dude. If you know, you know. Good luck with those rad roaches, Timmy. I wish your mother well.
This is our place for playing. It's not your place, so where are you staying? Take out hikes, 'cause we don't like to share. We just don't care.
Dude, it's so bad. What's even more messed up too is that this isn't even the worst of it. This song is straight up fire compared to what else is coming. As awful as the rhymes are, and as unpleasant as this is in general, it gets so much worse, you guys. As this song continues, Tommy sings back to them about how this place is big enough for all of them to share, but the McNulty boys, of course, are just not having it.
We'll separate the babies from the tots. But now. Hope there's extra diapers that you brought.
Okay, hold the fucking phone right there. They're singing about separating the babies from the tots and something about diapers. I don't know, I couldn't make it out very well, but basically they're teasing Tommy and his friends for wearing diapers. But excuse me? Is this kid right here not wearing a diaper? The McNulty boys piss me off for a plethora of reasons, but it's honestly ridiculous to me that they act all high and mighty and like they're better than babies when one of them is literally a baby. Don't even get me started on that episode where they're at the park and the McNultys falsely accuse Tommy of biting their ball. We checked it out in a recent video, but that one is another example of just how much of trash characters that the McNultys are. On top of that, just look at them. Look at these hairstyles. I get that they're going for that like Grease gangster kind of vibe or what the hell ever, and I guess they kind of nailed drawing it, but who asked for this? They just look stupid. This baby is standing there in a literal leather jacket and a diaper with wisps for hair. It's just obnoxious and I fucking hate it. Thanks, Rugrats. So the song ends up coming to a rather abrupt end as Timmy McNulty tells the babies to go watch the change machine for entertainment, but right before the babies can leave, this happens.
Hey, you can't have that dolly. That's Cynthia. The most prettiest face. The most tangliest hair. Cynthia. Oh, it's Cynthia.
Dude, no, I can't. I absolutely cannot with this episode. I can't handle this. As if the weird gang turf war shit wasn't bad enough, we're derailing this entire shit show of a train with a love song about Cynthia. This baby is in love with a doll. That's what it's come to, huh? We're that far out of ideas? Alrighty then. So this kid continues his song about Cynthia that comes along with just one of the worst montages that I've literally ever seen in my entire life. And eventually the song ends up ending as he's just kind of standing there holding Cynthia. Of course, Kimmy knows good and well that she's already got torn a new one today by Angelica just for simply holding Cynthia. So she tells Teddy to give her back, figuring that Angelica would be pretty pissed off to find out that he was trying to take her home.
Yeah, those are the rules. And he's keeping her. That sounds fair. I think our bobbies are calling us. That isn't yours. But this is mine. Now.
Kimmy and the rest of the babies start to argue as the two groups go back and forth over who Cynthia belongs to. Ultimately, Timmy decides that the only way for them to settle this once and for all is to have a tumble. While they're all setting that up, we cut to Angelica's house where we learn that she's finally realized that Cynthia is gone, and she's looking around the house for her in a panic. Charlotte ends up connecting the dots that Cynthia must have fallen into the laundry bag, and the two pile into the car to race to the laundromat as quick as they can. Back at the laundromat, however, Kimmy and Teddy are full-blown locked neck and neck in a battle of tug-of-war using Cynthia as the rope. In the midst of the war, however, they both lose their grip and Cynthia ends up flying into the washing machine that Betty just finished loading. With the most convenient timing ever, she closes the lid and starts it as the babies watch Cynthia being washed away by the flooding water inside. They all stand there and mourn, realizing what they did.
Cynthia, I didn't mean for anything like that to happen. I know.
Oh, you don't say, huh? You didn't mean for anything bad to happen as you were literally stealing toys from other kids and refusing to give them back? Huh, funny how that happens. Maybe you'll learn your lesson and stop being such a selfish jerk. It's just a shame that it had to be learned the hard way, but with that being said, that's usually how it goes with these types of selfish people. From there, as the episode continues, the tone, which has already been just completely fucked with, flip-flopped, and just makes no sense, then turns into complete and utter despair as Tommy starts singing a song lamenting of the souring of their new place to play.
There's a place far away, I don't know where it is. A place that's safe for dollies. And TV is just like this.
Dude, this song makes fucking absolutely no sense. Like, at least the McNulty boys sang about how selfish they are and how they don't like to share. The little one sang about his weird little feelings. But this one is literally just, there's a place where we can play without the McNulty boys, but it's a place far away. What? Like, seriously, they were just under the impression that they watched Cynthia die. But instead of being sad about that, we're gonna sing a sad song about how big of assholes that the McNulty boys are. Got it. Okay. Whatever you guys say. Actually, you know what? No, not whatever you guys say. This song is fucking stupid and it makes no sense. The second that they walk out of those doors, they're free of the McNulty boys. There's no reason for them to be this dramatic and singing about how the only place that they can play freely is far away. The logic here just isn't logicking at all whatsoever. This is exactly what I mean by lazy writing. This makes no sense. I don't get it at all. I imagine if maybe I had seen the play that they were referencing, maybe it could make a bit of sense, but all this just feels like a sloppily thrown together story with clashing tones if we're being honest. It's like they failed to realize that it's not all theater kids in the audience, it's also like kids who have no idea what the hell this is even referencing. Anyways, as their super depressing song comes to an end, Betty walks in with a massive smile on her face as she tells them that she found Cynthia and she's squeaky clean now, handing her over to the babies. Teddy runs up and grabs her, which Betty just kind of shrugs off and doesn't question for a second, even though she knows that Cynthia is Angelica's doll. As he's holding her though, we hear the sound of screeching tires as Charlotte pulls into the parking lot. Angelica sprints inside, and as she approaches her, Kimmy snatches Cynthia from Teddy, causing Angelica to snatch Cynthia from her.
I should have expected. Angelica, Kimmy saved Cynthia. You did? Uh-huh. Because I know you'd yell even louder if you lost it her for real. And because you love her and everything. Aw. Thanks, Kimmy. Hey, guys. Let's go push each other in those wheelie carts.
Really? That's it? That's the ending? That's the story? Man, what a load of crap. What even was that ending? Teddy just kind of gets the doll ripped out of his hands and goes right to smiling? He doesn't even care all of a sudden? Literally, he was just being a massive jerk and throwing a fit over Cynthia all of 30 seconds ago. But now he's just passive and Angelica coming up and taking her away? On top of that, these kids just spent like 11 minutes at odds with one another, but now, all of a sudden, we're all just gonna go play, huh? There's no grudge, no hostility. We're just gonna excuse the McNulty boys being straight up assholes and go right to playing with them? Huh. In all honesty, the lack of congruent storytelling here is almost impressive. There's no climax that feels like a worthwhile return to the story. Like, when we really look at this, it almost feels like they wrote 3 random songs parodying this musical, threw the McNultys in as antagonists, and tried to figure out how they could randomly string those 3 sequences together in a way that makes some sense. It's kind of like a Disney straight-to-DVD sequel. There wasn't even a proper throughput to an overarching story or wrapping up the loose ends. They just lazily stitched together random ideas that they thought were good, but were actually amazingly bad. Taking it from the top, we have to talk about those fucking McNulty boys. These kids are an absolute thorn in the side of the entirety of this show. They're one of my least favorite antagonists in Nicktoons history, and I'll elaborate on why. But before I do, I have to bring up how interesting the context of their characters are in the grand scheme of things. We first saw these little shits in the Season 4 episode, The Olympics, and in that one, it's framed that they're just another group of kids at the park. However, it wouldn't take long for us to realize that the simple feud between these groups of children goes a lot deeper than that. It was only 2 seasons later in the episode Wrestling Grandpa where we learned that Grandpa Lou and Grandpa McNulty have a long-standing rivalry that spans decades. These two old men have been at each other's throats since pretty much the dawn of time, and now their grandchildren have even gotten involved. On top of that, it's also been revealed in the episode Wrestling Grandpa that old Mr. McNulty has a history of being a cheater. He ends up in the ring with Grandpa Lou to finally settle their feud once and for all, but Grandpa McNulty ends up covering himself in grease, or something along those lines, making it so Lou can't get a good grasp on him as they're wrestling. Of course, that ends up biting him in the ass in the long run as he ends up being exposed, but interestingly enough, the apple clearly doesn't fall far from the tree, I suppose, as we would see the young McNulty boys being exposed for cheating in the Olympics episode as well. Granted, Angelica ended up cheating in that episode also, but still, the McNulty boys cheated first. They started it. That doesn't excuse Angelica's cheating, of course, but it does lay a lot of understanding as to what kind of people the McNultys are. Especially Timmy, as he tends to be the orchestrator of the bunch. In that context, though, keeping in mind that this is a generational feud, it's kind of wild to realize that there's almost a watered-down Hatfields versus McCoys type of rivalry happening here. Or, of course, if you're a Red Dead Redemption 2 fan, think the Braithwaites versus the Greys. Two families with a long-standing rivalry fueled by various events over the years, always destined to be at odds with one another. The parallels are pretty interesting when you look at it from that angle. It is rather ironic, though, when we consider the new context provided in Wash Dry Story. We have one generation of McNultys and Pickles, the grandfathers, who have hated each other and been rivals for many years now. Then we have their grandchildren, who again, kind of hate each other. I mean, it's hard to say that Tommy and his friends hate the McNultys, but they certainly are afraid of them. Angelica might hate them, but she's a bit of a different monster in any conversation. Kind of a natural outlier. Timmy and his brothers, though, yeah, they seem to hate the Pickles naturally. They just have this blatant aura of disrespect towards them and kind of an arrogant mindset thinking that they're superior, even though they're pretty much equals in almost every way. In the middle, though, between those two generations, we have the awkward generation where Stu, Drew, Charlotte, and Dee Dee Pickles, as well as Colleen McNulty and an unknown to us father of the McNulty boys exist. Whereas the grandfathers are constantly at war with one another, their children seem to coexist peacefully. Dee Dee and Colleen are at the laundromat together, and she's happily giving Dee Dee pointers on which machines to watch out for. Meanwhile, little does she know, her sons are pretty much reenacting the warriors in the back room, playing gangs and threatening other kids. I mean, we've even seen Dee Dee taking the babies to Colleen's house for Timmy's birthday party, and they got along just fine. All the while, her kids are just acting like a constant cloud of anxiety looming over the whole episode and leaving you wondering who their next target is going to be. All in all, though, beyond the irony and interesting parallels to real-life conflicts, the McNulty boys really do just fucking suck as characters. Circling back to why these little shits are my least favorite antagonists in Nicktoons history, it kinda stems from the fact that they're overall a placeholder for one-dimensional antagonism. They never really add any valuable context to any story, they never have any interesting story arc. It's like they're just little enforcers of their own self-appointed authority, which in all reality is completely non-existent. Their entire initial premise upon introduction to the series was meant to be the antagonist's antagonist. Timmy was originally supposed to be a negative counterpart to Angelica, and his brothers were supposed to be the same, but counterparts to the whole Rugrats crew in general. But whereas Angelica serves as the primary antagonist of the show for the most part, there's no the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario here, as the McNultys would leave no part of the Rugrats crew out of their sights. On top of that though, their entire existence has a tendency to suck the fun and enjoyability out of nearly any scene that they're in. Nearly any episode that these kids feature in almost immediately turns into a conflict-driven, noise-heavy mess. It's like the writers of this show thought that Angelica wasn't rude and obnoxious enough, so they thought, what if we basically made another Angelica? One somehow louder and more obnoxious and like 3 times worse overall. What possibly drives me even more nuts than the fact that these kids seem to escalate every single situation for no reason whatsoever and they can't carry a plot to save their lives is just how shitty their dialogue is in general. First of all, Timmy McNulty's voice and his general slobbery lisp is like nails on a chalkboard. I absolutely adore Tara Strong as a voice actor, but this might be her best role ever, just for the simple fact that she absolutely nailed making this kid sound like an absolute overconfident douchebag. Aside from Timmy though, we have to talk about Teddy. This kid is supposed to be the counterpart to Tommy, but like, he makes Tommy sound like he graduated with a doctorate in verbal communication. I don't know if there's like a massive age gap between Tommy and Teddy, but they seem to be extremely close in age. They're both in diapers and getting their first teeth near the same time. Other milestones, though, would lead me to believe differently. Specifically, what really sent me through a loop was this fucking kid saying, "Findy weepy, findy weepy." Like, what's wrong with him? We've heard Teddy talk normal in past episodes and even in this episode. But for a moment, it almost sounded like he was talking full-blown gibberish. It's not like he was talking to an adult either, considering adults in this show can't understand baby speak. He was talking to the other babies, but that was full-blown gibberish. Timmy even enforced it too, saying that's the rules, even though Teddy didn't even say anything that could be understood as a rule. Sure, it's clear he was trying to say finders, keepers, losers, weepers, but the fact that all of the babies just went along with this and no one corrected him makes you wonder a bit about the McNulty boys. I mean, when we consider that Tommy, who is pretty much Teddy's same age, hasn't literally ever spoken full-blown nonsense like that, just kinda seems a little bit jarring and odd. Furthermore, let's just be honest. These kids are assholes, especially Timmy. They all learn it from him, too. In the episode with them at the park, when Timmy ceremoniously hands down the family ball to Teddy, it's kind of symbolic, showing how much stake the McNultys put into family tradition, passing things down to one another, and learning from their leader, Timmy. In all reality, he's the little jerk who teaches his brothers by example, usually leading or paving the way for them. In this episode, we saw it clear as day when Kimmy told Teddy to give Cynthia back, and even Tommy chimes in to say that Cynthia doesn't belong to him, to which Teddy responds she is his now. If I'm being truly honest, I'm really curious about how this same exact interaction would have played out if Timmy didn't exist. Or maybe some bizarre universe where Timmy wasn't affected by whatever negative influence in his life taught him to be the way that he is. What would Teddy's reaction had looked like if he hadn't been trained by Timmy to be such a giant douche, or if Timmy himself hadn't merely seconds before asserted himself on Teddy's behalf, saying that he is keeping Cynthia? Basically holding the door open for Teddy to try and display dominance over these other babies. In all reality, as far as their characters are concerned, the McNulty boys, especially Timmy, are like the weird incarnate of toxic toddler masculinity. It's like Timmy's the gatekeeper of toddler testosterone. I mean, one of the first times we met him, he put Angelica down for being a girl, and we've seen him full-blown exclude every girl at his birthday party. As a group, they're collectively hyper-fixated on toughness, leadership, and enforcing this weird gang-like hierarchy even outside of episodes like this one, which literally parody those cringe 50s greaser tough guy gangs. I guess with that in mind, what it really boils down to is that they are shitty characters in a show that's known for having at least decently fleshed out characters. They feel like one-dimensional people caught in a two-dimensional world. Among all of the atrocious crimes committed in this episode, though, there's one subplot so incredibly cursed to its core, and just so stupidly baffling that it deserves its own FBI case file. You already know, we're talking about Teddy's creepy romantic feelings for a toy. Where do I even begin with this? Like, first of all, taking it from the top, what the actual fuck, right? What were they thinking here? Again, not familiar with West Side Story or if this is a reference to that, but even then, what the fuck, dude? Why did it have to be a toy? On top of that, of all toys, why Cynthia? Why the doll that's like weirdly synonymous with Angelica's identity? I mean, Cynthia's such a long-standing legacy character that she's almost not just a mascot of Angelica, but almost a mascot of the entire show in a way. Without a doubt, if you showed nearly anybody over the age of like 28 a picture of Cynthia, they'll at minimum know that's the doll from Rugrats, even if they couldn't name her or Angelica by name. With that in mind, seeing Cynthia going from being with Kimmy and getting married to Super Thing in the beginning, to going back to Angelica, to being with Jonathan in the bag of laundry, to ultimately being with Teddy, who saw her as the love of his life and obsessed over her. Of course, she did go with Betty for a while in the washing machine, and well, back to Teddy, only to be ripped away from him by Kimmy and given back to Angelica. I mean, all that to say that seeing Cynthia passed around like some cheap dollar store Helen of Troy seems almost weirdly disrespectful in a way. Like, this is Cynthia we're talking about. Put some respect on the name, dude. It's like if somebody accidentally dropped the Mona Lisa into the ball pit at the McDonald's play place and we're just watching toddlers fight over it. Furthermore, doubling down on my initial what the fuck, why was this a thing? I mean, the sheer level of infatuation literally makes no sense. It's kind of absurd, to be honest. Teddy sees this doll and it's like instantly over-the-top soulmate level meltdown. It's not like a playful sense of admiration that you might expect from a baby. It's a full-blown immediate obsession. He sees her and straight up jumps into a song that's dedicated to how much he loves her. It's really creepy if we're being honest. On top of, in general, being just nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it's Cynthia. The drip of ice cream as it melts on a spoon. The feel of a really big round red balloon. There's nothing beside what will be mine soon. Cynthia.
Listen, okay, that was just awful. I absolutely can't stand this song. But like, let's really boil this down. He sees this doll that isn't his, instantly falls deep in romantic love, and absolutely refuses to return her to her rightful owner. If we're really being honest, this isn't cute. It's really awkward and strange. They're portraying him with like this weird incel energy, and it isn't working. It's just way too cringy. Furthermore, like, what the hell were they even saying here? What's the moral to this portion of the story? Is this a message about first crushes and how they can hit you like a freight train? Is it about the dangers of people who are possessive? Is it a simple narrative about sharing and that's it? What it really boils down to, though, is that regardless of the answer to any of those questions, whatever message they tried to send completely failed to land. I mean, as a matter of fact, they may have accidentally taught that immediate unhealthy obsession is okay, even if you want to steal what it is that you're obsessed with. They might have even shown an unhealthy message in entitlement in the sense that it was just seemingly okay for Teddy to keep what wasn't his just because he was fixated on it. I mean, the way that his brothers full-blown enabled this was just so scummy. Their logic was he found it and he likes it, so it's his now. And like, come on. This sounds like some kind of twisted, fucked up origin story for some like crooked Wall Street CEO or something. One of the biggest sins, though, had to have been the fact that this led to such a lackluster and empty ending. Teddy throws massive fits about Cynthia, refuses to return her, and just acts like he's gonna marry her or something. But then Kimmy rips her away in the end, and he's just like, okay. There's no fight, no tears, not even much of a frown or anything. It's like if Romeo full-blown watched Juliet die and then just shrugged it off and went to go have some cereal or something like that. The lack of climax here makes the entire Teddy portion of things just feel so emotionally hollow. In classic Rugrats, in the pre-Rugrats in Paris and Rugrats movie era, emotional moments hit really hard. They carried a certain weight and they stuck really well, even the weird ones. In this one though, all you get is drama with zero resolution and this big build-up that comes along with absolutely no payoff. It's a subplot that wasn't just completely awful and stupid, it was narratively abandoned. Like, if they didn't just write 3 parody songs and lazily strung them together, then they clearly tried to write an emotional arc and just kinda gave up halfway through. Now, if I'm being honest, I'm not going to sit here and say that this era of Rugrats was all garbage. Sure, the series dropped off in quality after both of the movies, but the later seasons did have some episodes that were enjoyable and appreciated by new and old fans alike. However, there were a lot of complete shit episodes, and this one is probably the biggest example of that. What really makes the fact land so hard, though, is that so many of us are very familiar with the tried and true core Rugrats formula that worked excellently. The original episodes had that magic secret sauce of toddler logic meets adult reality. An excellent example of that is the intro sequences that I brought up earlier. They look incredibly foreign, as toddler logic would naturally dictate, but everything they zoom out on always ends up being something rooted in logic or reality. It always ends up being just some real-life item. In those intro sequences and throughout the entirety of the early episodes, imagination was always a creative lens, not like a crutch for a lack of a story. A lot of times, the conflicts in the show back then came from something rooted in real life. Oftentimes, relatable baby problems. Not random toddler gang turf wars and forced out-of-place musical numbers. I mean, if we consider the history of the show and some of the classic episodes, the tone was so grounded, and it almost had an indie feeling with that rough animation, gentle color palette, and the comforting jazz score. The early episodes had a tendency to let you sit in a moment and kind of savor it. You could feel the vibe that they were trying to portray a lot more than you could in later episodes. We went from a special and very specific kind of tone to a nightmare laundromat with migraine-fueled music. Compared to the classic episodes of the show, this one truly does drop the ball, even when we consider the really out-of-pocket and far-fetched early episodes. For example, The Trial. This one right here would see Chucky full-blown put on trial for breaking a lamp. It's a mock-up of a courtroom proceeding, and it didn't land anywhere as forced as this story did. In that one, the conflict is heavily character-driven in a productive way. Angelica's up to her typical lies, Tommy is confused about which of his friends could have wronged him, and Chucky nearly loses it trying to defend himself from Angelica's accusations. As heightened as the emotions are, it's still grounded in emotion. In comparison to Wash Dry Story, where the conflict pretty much comes down to a baby sees a doll and immediately decides to enter a committed relationship with it, only to forget her the moment she's gone. Another excellent example would be the Season 1 Halloween episode Candy Bar Creepshow. This one truly is a quintessential Nicktoons Halloween special. Furthermore, it's a simple horror classic from the point of view of a baby. It's subtle fear with a clever twist, and it captures the perfect balance between far-fetched creativity and an actual plausible story. Where Wash Dry Story completely dropped the ball, this episode shows how to do a fantasy adventure without losing grip on the show's tone. I mean, come on, even an episode like The Box, which was just about the kids being given a box to play with, was more creative and original than Wash Dry Story. Literally, it's the babies in a box the whole episode, and that one has much more value than this steaming pile. The Box was pure toddler creativity. That episode was straight up proof that Rugrats didn't need musical numbers, cringe subplots, or turf wars with the McNulty boys. Just one cardboard box and some good writers. What it really came down to was that imagination was a tool, not the whole story itself. Like, in the early episodes, fantasy enhanced the situation. It didn't serve to replace it. In Wash Dry Story, the episode itself becomes fantasy and reality tends to just kind of evaporate. As we follow the trail of breadcrumbs left though, I can't help but find myself asking one really big question. What did the fans think? So, a lot of times when I go digging and researching trivia and lore about the episodes that I might not be too familiar with or understanding the references in, I find myself stumbling upon comments on forums where people openly give their honest feedback about that particular episode. So, in the spirit of getting in touch with the Rugrats community at large, I thought it would be interesting to see what some people are saying about this episode. I'm hoping that maybe I can find some positive light from people who might actually enjoy this episode and, even more important, an explanation as to why this one doesn't suck in their opinion. That song that Teddy sings about Cynthia always brings tears to my eyes. Well, I'm happy for you, my friend. It sounds like you mean that in kind of a positive and emotional way. For me, it does the same, but more in a sense of sorrow and remembrance for how amazing this show was in the days of yore. Or maybe it's my eyes watering up from yawning out of boredom, who knows. Timmy's younger brothers are really cute, even though they're not very friendly. The youngest one is the cutest. Okay, listen, I respect your opinion wholeheartedly. I think it's really valid. However, with all of the peace and love in the world, I couldn't disagree more. I think Timmy and his younger brothers are the exact opposite of cute. They're downright ugly in my opinion. Timmy himself looks like he was a rejected character from Hey Arnold, or like he didn't make the audition for Andy in Toy Story or something like that. And his little brothers are just boring knockoffs of the Rugrats. They all have very bean-shaped faces, and I absolutely find that character design atrocious. The twins, dude? These kids have the most fucking sourpuss looks on their faces. They always just look so malicious and like they hate everything and everyone. This kid, he doesn't even look like he's related to the others. I have no idea what he's even doing here, but obviously he's the lazy counterpart to Chucky. And Teddy? Oh man, I might just hate Teddy the most. Sure, Timmy is the biggest jerk, but Teddy, something about him makes me just hate him so much. He's always making the dumbest faces, and the way that they draw his little wispy hairs just drives me insane. His voice is like a rubber duck in a blender, and he's overall a jerk just like his brothers. But somehow, his audacity pisses me off more than the rest of those McNulty brats. That episode was hilarious. That episode was most certainly not hilarious. Nothing about this was funny. There wasn't much here that really was even worth like a breathy pity chuckle. Of course, comedy is subjective and hilarity will vary from viewer to viewer, but I personally take the term hilarious very seriously. Like if you watch my SpongeBob reviews, usually when that word leaves my mouth, it's as I'm actively laughing. This episode though, this was not hilarious, even remotely. Wash Dry Story could have been great if it wasn't so cluttered and the songs got a rewrite. I actually enjoy episodes focused on Cynthia, and I think the laundromat itself was a creative idea for a setting that would feel larger than life to a baby/toddler. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. This is a fresh one too, a whopping 26 days ago compared to the other comments that were like up to a decade old. I think this person hit the nail on the head. It's pretty interesting too because with a username like that, I assume that they're a fan of Broadway, right? Hamilton's a musical, no? Yeah, this person's opinion is interesting given the context that they're very likely familiar with musicals. I bet they're not far off at all, too. If this episode had a bit of decluttering, a bit more work on the story, and definitely rewriting those atrocious songs, it likely would have had a bit more potential. I also agree with their sentiment about Cynthia episodes. The 7 Voyages of Cynthia, dude? Phenomenal episode. I just wish this one was a little bit better in that regard. The Cynthia aspect here wasn't all too entertaining or charming. And you know what? Yeah, I do agree that an episode focused around a laundromat isn't too horrible of an idea, especially considering how infatuated the babies were with the washing machines, pretty much thinking that like they were TVs. All in all, this one had potential, but they kind of flubbed it, and I think that this person gets it. Now, that was pretty much all the comments that I could find online about this one, which I feel also indicates its quality as an episode. Not very many people are talking about it. However, I did find a blog from a few years ago where someone gave their thoughts on the episode. It was a blog post by a Vestin Bruno, and they said that they like this episode because in their opinion, it's a good satire on a classic musical. They go on to explain the characters that Timmy, Kimmy, and Teddy were parodies of, and they went on to show appreciation for the songs that they spoofed, considering that this person actually knows the real songs as they were originally written. As a matter of fact, they go on to say that they wish there were more songs in this one. After that, they highlight that it's a parody of West Side Story, explaining its significance and other cartoon parodies of the like. They end up coming to the moral of, always keep your eyes on your prized possessions. If not, they end up in a laundry basket on the way to the laundromat. And, well, I'm not too sure if I agree with that moral, but hey, it's better than any other moral that they could have possibly been trying to portray in this episode due to its lack of a solid story. Like, I guess that person really did pull like the most solid, valid, and fact-based moral that could have been taken from this one, so that has some merit. Ultimately, though, they pointed out that this was the last appearance by the McNulty boys, and that they were thankful for that, which I honestly could not agree more. Those fucking McNulty boys suck, and good riddance if you ask me. All in all, though, this review makes sense, and I get where it's coming from. I might myself have a bit more appreciation for this one if I was even remotely educated in Broadway or musicals in general, but other than sheer amazement at how many productions that Adrian did costume design for between Broadway and Hollywood in his time, I'm completely lost on the topic. So I guess it makes sense though that aspect wouldn't be all too favorable to me. However, with that being said, I may not know Broadway or musicals, but I know music. I'm very passionate about music, I listen to a lot of music, I play music, I write music, and while I hate to say this, but I'm gonna have to officially declare this a crime scene because this episode full-blown murdered the spirit of music. Alright now, don't you worry ladies and germs, Special Officer Dusk is here to put out a statement on behalf of the Dusk Till Shawn Police Department Special Victims Unit now. The rhythm was off, the lyrics were awful, and the motive behind this murder is still unclear. In all seriousness, the songs here just don't work. The sudden Grease-inspired musical number or what the hell ever just clashes with the entire tone of the episode, and the levels of cringe in these lyrics are nearly toxic. As if the awful outfit and hairstyles weren't bad enough, we start out with offbeat snapping, and the lyrics are, "This is our place for playin', it's not your place, so why are you stayin'?" Like, why? And like, what even is the choreography here? What the fuck are they doing? These kids just look stupid. Separate the babies from the tots, don't forget your diapies that you broughts. Like, what even is this garbage? What are they saying? I already talked about the irony that one of them is literally in diapers themselves, but on top of that, like, who the fuck wrote this shit and decided that it was a good idea to put this on TV? I guess if the goal was to triple down on how annoying the McNulty boys are, They completely accomplished that goal by far. It's just so awful. It's like someone wrote Grease and Rugrats crossover fanfiction after chugging a bottle of NyQuil. With that being said though, hey, it's not like I could have done any better myself. Yeah, no, we're not doing this. I'm honestly not sure which one I hate more though. That song or the one that Teddy sang about Cynthia. They're both, extremely awful in my opinion, but the context kind of makes them different flavors of shitty. The most prettiest face, the most tangliest hair, Cynthia, oh it's Cynthia. The most specialist thing that I see over there, Cynthia, oh it's Cynthia. First of all, those rhymes are whack as fuck, but on top of that, is it not just unsettling as shit to hear a literal baby belting out a ballad about his love for a plastic doll? Combine that with the fact that his voice sounds like King Diamond swallowed a helium tank. It's like if you gave a gremlin a kazoo and told him to play a song about his imaginary girlfriend. The drip of ice cream as it melts on the spoon, the feel of a really big round red balloon is nothing beside what will be mine soon, Cynthia. Okay, hold on. You're telling me this fucking kid with drool leaking out of his mouth half of the time is able to come up with such an eloquent line at the end there, but literal seconds later he's saying findy weepy. God, I feel like just in quoting him saying that I'm getting dumber by the second. She's a doll, Teddy. She has no free agency. Why are you trying to fall in love and build a life with an inanimate object? Plus, when you keep in mind that he's practically taking her prisoner, this one hits a lot different. We're entering the territory where I'm beginning to think, is this a love song or is it a hostage note disguised as a song? As far as all the music goes in this episode, to be honest, I'm not even going to bother with that last song because it's completely irrelevant to the story in its entirety, and I think it makes a bigger statement not going over the lyrics and details than wasting your time looking at them just to say that I did for the sake of a complete analysis. It's not going to make a difference. You guys get it. In all reality, this episode is completely tone deaf, if not guilty of portraying an inconsistent and jarring tone. It's trying to mash toddler-level story logic with a musical format that's intended for adult drama on a big stage. It can be said about almost all of these songs, but especially the final one, it doesn't really enhance the characters, the plot, or the message. It's just pure filler, period, point blank. There's a massive lack of substance to this episode, and it really shines through in these clashing musical numbers. The worst part of it all, though, is that it isn't even catchy. You can't just slap a shitty song in the middle of an episode and call it depth. That doesn't even, by default, make a musical moment. It just kind of adds an awkward speed bump in the story that we're all forced to sit through. All things considered, as far as the whole series goes, I consider this to kind of be the stain that just will not wash out. This episode is a bit of a tough one, especially as a long-time fan of the series. It's an episode that isn't just bad, but in many ways, it also betrays everything that once made this show so amazing and unique. This one is extremely loud and it comes across very scattered and confused. It's emotionally hollow, and as a result it just kind of comes across as trying way too hard. It's honestly kind of hard not to feel like this show kind of abandoned its formula in exchange for a chaotic mess that forgets who the audience is, what the show's tone once was, and how babies actually work. What it really comes down to is the fact that it's an episode that makes you question not just the show itself, but also your own choices, your memories, and whether these nostalgia goggles are actually just a gateway drug to some pretty bitter disappointment. This right here was my attempt to exorcise the demon that is this episode and understand it for what it truly is, seeing it objectively. But the truth is, some episodes just aren't meant to exist, and this one is an excellent example of that. I tried, you guys. I really tried. But this one just is not redeemable in any sense for me. This episode wasn't a misstep on behalf of the writers and producers. it was a full-blown tumble down the fucking stairs. One that, not gonna lie, did tarnish the reputation of the show a bit. All in all though, not enough to completely sour the rest of it. The thing is, as a fan of this show, I'll always love Rugrats, and nearly the rest of the original series holds up very well. Especially those OG episodes, dude. They had so much character, and they were heartfelt, they were clever, but this one is certainly proof that even the best of shows can fall victim to crappy writing and lazy execution. Rugrats itself may have been a landmark show, but this episode was the graffiti on the walls of the bathroom stall of that landmark. This video is lovingly dedicated to the memory of narrative cohesion. But what do you guys think? Do you hate this episode as much as I do? If not, am I overreacting? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Also, if you have any particular episodes of any shows you want me to talk some shit about like I did to this one, let me know that in the comments as well. I might just be happy to oblige. Of course, before I go, I have to give a loving shout out with an extra side of thank you so much to my friends in the True 90s Kids tier across both Patreon and YouTube memberships. You guys are the absolute best, and I appreciate every single one of you. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to stick around for another nostalgic walk down memory lane, and as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Peace.